All right, everybody, welcome back to Around the Draft. It's just me and Jake today, unfortunately. Felix, we're hoping you're feeling all right. Not sure if you're able to see us today or not, but if you are, definitely hoping you're feeling good. Felix is having some stuff going on, so we're gonna give him some rest here. We'll hopefully see him again before the draft rolls around, but if not, we're finishing up the positional rankings. Jake, this is finally the last one, at least the ones that we care about. We could do kickers and punters, but I don't know. I don't know nothing about that.
Nice little
My
top 10 kickers list.
yeah, like the only kicker I
There is
know of
10,
that's
probably
good
not,
is
but
I think there's one kid I don't even remember where he's from. I know Iowa's punter's apparently a freak,
yeah, he gets a
which
lot of action,
that's what I'm
so
saying. Like I was saying that to someone the other night. I'm like, of course he's good. Like what else is he gonna
he
do?
gets the most reps
Like
of
what?
any punter in the country.
Right. Like Iowa's offense is basically like how much can we make set the defense up so they can maybe score a touchdown. Like, but no, I'm not trying to slander Iowa too much, but no, we're gonna do our top safeties and slot defenders in this class today, Jake. I think we did talk about some of the guys we're gonna talk about today on the corner list.
Yeah.
But we're gonna kind of dive in more deeply on like we know why we think they're gonna be good fits in the slot, why the guys we have at slot that are corners are slot guys for us. So should be interesting. Definitely gonna be, these positions aren't as they aren't viewed as highly in this class as a lot of other positions are, especially slot defender just never really is, but it's becoming more and more important for like look at a lot of the best defense over the past like 5 years. They all have a slot defender that's like legit. So it's going to be
Mhm.
important for teams to be able to target this position, and including my team, admittedly with Steelers, I really want them to target hopefully at least one of the guys on this list here that we're going to talk about, but we'll see. We're going to start with the safeties first, and again, there's might be some crossover where like some of the slot defenders we talk about might be also safeties that could have made our list, but I kind of separated them out in terms of who I think should be playing safety, especially, and who should be playing slot corner. I'm sure you kind of did the same thing there, Jake. So,
Yeah.
um, so we'll start with safeties. Who's your number 5 safety?
So my number 5 safety is Kalen Bullock out of
Alan
UFC.
Bullock. That's actually interesting because he is
USC, I think I
my
said UFC,
yeah,
but
it's USC, and he's actually my number 5 safety as well.
all right, perfect. Yeah, he's the biggest thing I took away from watching him is that he basically just plays center field.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's the key thing. I'll just jump in right here with you. The main reason he's 5 and not probably a little bit lower is because he is maybe the true free safety, like center field guy in this class, even if he's very inconsistent.
yeah. Yeah, he's got great instincts, great ball skills, which if you watch the last episode for defensive backs, ball
Very
skills
important for
is
Jake.
important for me.
Very important for Jake.
um, but yeah, he worries me in his tackling. He's a little bit undersized and he's not a consistent tackler. So his effect in the run game, I think, or his lack of effect in the run game, I should say, I think will, at least at the beginning of his NFL career, it's going to limit some of his snaps.
Yeah.
But he's got great instincts. He really, as you said, he really is the true like free safety in this
Yeah.
class. And that is what has him at 5 because apart from that, I think he's a good prospect, but apart from that, there wasn't really too much that I saw from him. He's pretty solid in man coverage. His hips are pretty flexible. He can change direction and he's pretty quick, but just the lack of skill in the run game is what has him down at 5 for me.
I think he's very much like a Diet and Lee Cooker type of safety, where it's like he's going to be able to range over the top. He's going to probably be able to come away with some picks for on quarterbacks who just kind of don't give him credit as a free safety and don't expect
Mhm.
plays on it. But teams are going to be able to target him in the run game, and they're going to be able to throw at him when he doesn't have good coverage, and they're going to hope that the receiver can break the tackle, right? And for a safety, there's a reason they're called safeties, right? They're kind of supposed to be like the safety valve of the defense. They're supposed to be the last line
Yeah.
of defense. You don't really want him being the last line of defense, unfortunately, and that is going to limit him. I do think it's going to make him probably a part-time player to start his career.
Yeah.
Kind of regardless of where he gets drafted. I just don't know if you can throw him out there, week one and expect him to not give up some plays in the run game. And also, whenever like I said, when receivers do catch the ball on him, is he going to be able to bring them down? That's definitely a question mark with him. So I kind
Yeah.
of felt like not pigeonholed to put him on the list because again he has the skill that really no one else in this class quite has in that same way that he does. But he's definitely a player that like you got to be careful with, how you use him early on in his career, especially. You hope he can develop a little bit, and guys usually over time they are going to start to get a little bit better with stuff like that. But Yeah, the run defense.
Yeah.
Just
And he also played on a USC defense that was
yeah,
very bad tackling,
yeah, they're
kinda.
not well coached by Grinch. I like to call him Alex Grinch. Yeah, his heart never doubled, tripled in size. He was always nah.
Yeah.
We're not about that here at USC. We're about throwing the football down the field. We're not about
Yeah, who needs
tackling
tackling?
anybody. Yeah, so
Yeah, so that's something that I don't think, like, it's not something that he could be good at the NFL because if he can get
yeah,
coached up, he could do better, but I think USC, I don't they care about tackling, but from watching their defense, they weren't great at it, so it could have just been like, with him especially, it could have
right.
been something they didn't really focus on too much, but
Right. And, like, I don't think he's horrendously undersized or underweight or anything like
yeah.
that. So, like, I think it's the potential for him to get better, like you said, is there. It's just right now, until you see that improvement, maybe it happens early, maybe it doesn't. He's definitely a guy that you kind of want to use sparingly and in situations where you just need somebody to keep the top on the defense, right? Which,
Mhm.
some weeks that's more important than others, depending on who you're playing. So maybe his snap counts might kind of, if he does get a role early, it probably is going to jump around in terms of how often he plays. But he's at least a player that has a useful skill right out the gate, which in this
Yeah.
class kind of puts you at 5 probably for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So in that case, then, so my number 4 safety, we'll jump into my number 4 then here. Malik Mustafa from Wake Forest. I'm not sure if you have him in your top 5, Jake. I know he's kind of like a late riser for some people. So
Yeah, he's not in my top 5.
gotcha. Okay, so I'll talk about him a little bit here. So excuse me. So really, the thing with him that I like is, and this is the problem with a lot of the safeties in this class, is I feel like a lot of their floors aren't particularly high. Like you're not get guaranteed to get a player who's going to contribute both early and for a long time. Like I think a lot of the guys have a lot of red flags that would kind of make it a risk to take them, especially on like day 2. With him, I do question whether his upside is going to be there because he isn't the fastest player in the world. He is built really well, like so he does have some upside as like a run defender, especially. I think he'd be one of the better ones, honestly, as safety if given time. But he just doesn't have super, long range. He's not going to be a free safety type for you. I think he could survive in like single high at times, and he did at Wake Forest at times, but just not his best skill. But this dude can hit you. Like he is legitimately like a hammer in the run game. And if you're gonna draft a safety on day 2 and you can't get like a Kalen Bullock type that's gonna range over the top and do that stuff for you, get a guy who's gonna, especially like as the season wore on. He had some hiccup games for sure in terms of like had a couple bad tackling games, but for the most part, really sound tackler, will hit you hard, like I said. And his coverage instincts are really good for a player that's more of that type that isn't necessarily like a rangy player. And I think you could have him survive in a lot of systems. I do think in the best situation would be kind of used kind of how the Patriots use their bigger safeties and kind of like that pseudo like linebacker role a little bit,
Mhm.
especially early on, because I think he'd thrive there immediately. But he does have enough speed and explosiveness. I think he jumped really well. I might have been like 40 plus inches in the vertical. I have to double check it again, but he has just enough speed and athleticism to hang as a true safety while also giving you a lot of upside in the box too.
Yeah. I like him a lot. He barely was behind, Bullock for me, but
Hmm.
I do like Malik. He has the ideal, like, physicality and energy that
Yes.
you want
Yeah.
in a safety, especially for, like, as you said, the last line of defense.
Yeah,
He
he's
brings
kind of
that
very much the
physicality.
opposite. Yeah, he's very much the opposite of Bullock in that way, where it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, he can hang with that type of situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But I think he's gonna be, a pretty solid NFL player. I mean, he's got great instincts, especially against the run.
Yes.
He can notice the run very well, and he just flies downhill straight to the ball carrier. And that is one of my concerns because he can be a little bit over aggressive.
Yes,
But
which
I
that has
think,
to get a little better. Yeah.
yeah, but I think with that much energy, as a college player, it's not a huge concern for me.
No, yeah,
If
there's plenty of guys
anything,
that are like that. Yeah.
there's a lot of players that I'm going to talk about in this episode that don't have that type of physicality. So if anything, I do like that he plays that style. Um, he doesn't have. I didn't when watching him, I didn't really think he was the greatest athlete. He doesn't have that
Right.
type of range, but
Mhm.
I did notice that he's pretty solid in zone coverage. He's good at reading the quarterback and reading running schemes. He's just a smart player in general. I
Yes,
think he's
he
good.
attacks downhill at the right times. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
he doesn't slow up and he doesn't second guess himself when he's coming downhill. And yeah, like you said, the over aggressiveness can hurt him sometimes. When he's right, it's a immediate stop. Like it's catch the ball for 4 yards and the guy's trying to get yards after catch and he doesn't get an inch. Like that's the type
Yeah.
of stuff that if you're gonna play in that like kind of like drop zone or that like I said pseudo linebacker type of role, I think that would be maybe his best fit early on because he might not really have to go too far back, but he can come forward quickly on like crossing routes and stuff like that. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and I think that would be his best usage in the NFL because that would really allow him to get downhill against the run
mhm.
quicker. But yeah, I like Mustafa. He's got one of the coolest names of anyone in the class,
It's
so he's
another
got that
thing.
going for him.
Yeah. Hey, that
There's your
that
expert
gets your points.
analysis.
That gets you points for me. I don't know. I mean, it's like because like you know the NFL wants those guys to be good because like we could talk about Malik Mustafa this week. That sounds great. So, but no, well he's definitely a pretty good player I think. But who's your number 4 safety then?
So my number 4 safety is Dadrion Taylor Demerson out of Texas
Okay.
Tech.
I was wondering if one of us was gonna have him. So let me put him up on the screen here. But yeah, you got to talk about him then.
All right, yeah. Ball skills, first thing I'll mention. But
Mm-hmm.
he's a very, very fluid mover. He can be used in a lot of different ways too. He can play. I think he can play deep off the ball. He can play um, closer to the line of scrimmage. He's got great instincts, and he does have pretty good range. It's not really quite up there with Bullock, I would say, but
Right.
he can get side to side across the field pretty quick. And that kind of allows him to disrupt some of those longer plays. So I do think he's solid in that last line of defense, but he's a little undersized, and I think because of that, that just kind of hurts his tackling. He doesn't really have any type of that I noticed like a physical. He doesn't like hit too physically in the run game.
Right. And he's a bit undersized for a safety a little bit. Not anything
Yeah, and
crazy, but a little bit, yeah.
yeah, and I think that's part of why he doesn't play too physical. He kind of dives at ankles a lot. He'll do wrap and rolls a lot. So with some of the more powerful running backs in the NFL, if they like break off and get into the second level, little worried about him there, but
Right.
he has great instincts and he moves very well. I think he's going to be a pretty solid player. I would say he probably has a little higher floor than I would think for some of the players in the safety class, just because I think some of the things he does well will translate pretty well to the NFL.
And he is the
But yeah,
athlete you want for like a guy who can play like true free safety or split field. And like
mhm.
I think that's another thing too, is there isn't a ton of great athletes that are also good enough players on film for you to be like, all right, I could see this guy making an impact like relatively early, right?
Yeah,
I do think he fits that category of somebody who can. And one of the reasons I will say he's outside of my top 5 is a combination of like the physicality issues that I see. That's like I don't know if this guy is going to really be like a full-time starter type because of
mhm.
that, unless he can really improve that a little bit. And he is an older player at 24, so he's coming in a little bit
Yeah,
older.
yeah,
Which again, I try not to ding guys too much with that because we've seen that a lot lately. Just because with like we're kind of getting to the end of the COVID stuff where guys are like 6-year players and stuff like that. But it's like some guys are just a little bit older coming out in this class.
yeah,
That'll still happen for a little while. So, yeah, I mean, I have no issues with you having him in your top 5, especially because of the upside as a coverage player, because of the athleticism. Again, I
mhm.
kind of view like I think Bullock. You could definitely make the argument where like I could see having him over Bullock. It's just that Bullock is younger and I think has more room to grow. So,
Yeah.
yeah. My number. Well, we'll actually go to your number 3 here then, because I took number 4. So, who's your number 3 safety?
All right, my number 3 safety is Jaden Hicks.
Okay, cool. So we can talk about him then. So he is, just so we're on the same page here, he is my number 1 safety,
All
actually.
right, perfect.
And
Okay, so
it's for a specific reason. We'll talk about it, but you got to start with him
all right, I'll talk about him, and then you can tell me why he's number 1.
then. Yeah, sure.
Um, good ball skills. He's a very smart player.
Hmm.
One of the things I noticed off tape. And he's very quick. He doesn't struggle to change direction. He's a very fluid mover. My main concerns here are they're not that big because at the safety position, I don't think it's a huge deal, but his vertical speed, I don't, if he ever does find himself in man-to-man coverage, I do worry about him getting beat deep because I don't think he has that speed or really the recovery speed. Um, But I think at the safety position, I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue for him. So I'm not too concerned about that. And then just my only other concern with him is really just consistently tackling at the NFL level. Um, he's smart and he has good technique, but I saw a decent amount of missed tackles, and it could have
Yeah.
just been like specific games that I watched. I could have maybe missed some things, but I did notice there's a lot of times where he just kind of misses tackles, and I didn't really understand why, because it doesn't look like he has bad form or anything like that. I just feel like I just saw a lot of times where he just wasn't
I think
able.
he takes a lot of bad angles sometimes. I think
Yeah,
he tries to he kind of over pursues at times, and I
yeah,
think honestly, and I'll get to it, but I think he actually still he's a better athlete than I think he shows at times, and I think it's because he just
hmm
doesn't have a feel yet for how to use his speed that he does have, and I think that's
yeah.
something he's going to have to get better at. But yeah,
Yeah, I think he's a good athlete. He moves very quickly. There's some players in the secondary that I was watching that you can see they kind of it just takes them longer to change direction or
yes,
stuff like that, which in zone coverage as a safety will hurt.
hmm
But that wasn't a concern of mine with him. I really do like Hicks. He's 3 for me, but I do think he's going to be a real solid player at the NFL level.
Yeah, I will say, like, so I do have him number one, right? So the main reason I have him number one is I don't think he had the best tape of the safety class, but I think
Yeah.
he has the highest physical upside of the safeties who are going to go early, right?
hmm
His size combination, he measured in, and I wanted to pull it up here, at just over 6 foot, 211 pounds, which is really good size for the safety
Yeah.
position. 4.5 flat 40 free safety, which again, just safety is good, very good, honestly. Shuttle time is a little bit low, but three cone was excellent. Vert 37 and a half. Like he's an explosive player. I
hmm
just think that ultimately he still kind of he's only had about 1,200 snaps in college as a player, especially 2 years as a starter, right? And that's good for college player. Not everybody gets a chance to play 3-4 years as a full time starter, but I still think he has some room to grow in terms of, like I said, the pursuit angles is a big thing. I think he's a good tackler, but he does still need to get a little bit more consistent and use his size to his advantage a little bit more. And I think he just like in coverage, he doesn't always use his speed to its best advantage. I do think he can kind of carry, especially like not maybe elite speed players, obviously, but like anybody who's in that like 4.4, 4.5 range at receiver, I think he can run up the seam with them if you needed him
hmm
to. He just needs to use better technique and like not second guess himself a little bit. Because I think when he stutters a second, that's when he's about as fast as those guys. If they get a step on him, now it's over, right? Like now you
Yeah.
can't recover. So if he hits a ceiling, I think he will be the best safety in this class. It's just can he go somewhere where he's going to be able to hit that? That's going to be the question with him. But again, if I'm betting on someone in this class to be like a legit like multi-time like Pro Bowler or like impact player, it would probably be him for the physical upside.
Yeah, and my tackling concern isn't really that big with him too, just because a lot of players I worry about just because they look like they don't want to tackle, like they'll
Right.
ankle dive or something. But
He's physical. Yeah, he's
yeah,
very
you can
physical.
tell.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not too worried about that really, because you can tell that he is not afraid to hit somebody.
No.
So I do think he'll improve on that. I don't have it's not like too big of a concern for me because he at least unlike some other players in the class, he at least looks like he does want to tackle, which is
Right.
something that you can't teach. You either want to do it
No,
or you
yeah,
don't.
some guys want that contact and others don't. He definitely is one of
Yeah.
those, like I think he profiles best as a true, like, traditional strong safety type,
Mhm.
but I think he has the range to be a little bit more than that, which is the main thing for me
Yeah.
with him. My number 3 guy, and I probably realistically, and I'm wondering if you have him in your top 5 because of the testing was really bad and, like, the tape as good as it is there's concerns on it. I kinda wanted to drop him lower than this, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Tyler Newbin out of Minnesota. Um, he do you have him in your top 5?
I have him at 2.
Okay, so we're right on the same page.
Yeah.
My so I think he had the best tape of the safety class, like in terms of the instincts, the smarts, the zone coverage ability, like just everything that goes into playing safety. He's physical in the run game. He does it all, but even like before the testing, even before that happened, and I caught some of them because I'm Big Ten guy. I watched a lot of Big Ten football, Wisconsin fan, Penn State coverage, all that stuff.
Yeah.
There's times where you can see where it's like this dude just can't really run sometimes.
Yeah.
Like he just doesn't
Yeah.
quite have the range you want for a safety, even as a strong safety, even honestly. So when he does get turned around, or when he guesses wrong, when he doesn't have like a beat on the play, he probably isn't going to be involved in the play. Like it's just there's going to be a boomer bustness to him, I think, which is the sad
Yeah.
part because he's such a good and smart player, but his physical limitations are just kind of get him, I think, sometimes to the next level. Like, could you imagine like him trying to read Tyreek Hill on like a post route and he doesn't read it ahead of time? Like, there'd be 10 yards of separation.
Yeah.
Like, it's just tough. Like, I still have him at 3 because I believe in his ability as a player in terms of all like the things I said, the instincts, the smarts, that like all that's there. But how far can it take you? Because we've seen guys get away with it a little bit. Like, Micah Hyde was a better athlete like laterally than him, but like also didn't run very well, but like was just really smart, tough, all that stuff. Like guys like that. But there's a floor, and not even a floor, a ceiling that's kind of hard to reach past when you have this type of athletic profile.
Yeah.
And it's so I wonder if he might end up just kind of being a really good like third safety.
Yeah. I think it's very possible. I'm pretty high on him, but I mean that yeah, that's my biggest
Yeah, it's
concern is
just the athletic
his
profile.
foot is just not and yeah, he him thinking about him trying to guard Tyreek Hill down the field
Right, I
terrifies
know
me.
that's an extreme
Terrifies me.
example, but
It
like
is
there's
an
a
ex
lot of fast dudes in the league, man.
Yeah,
Like
no, you don't it doesn't even need to be Tyreek Hill. I feel like most teams at this point have at least just one receiver that can just
who
go really fast down the field.
yes, and they will all be faster than him. And it's just
Yeah,
like, man, when he guesses wrong, like I said, when he's if anytime he's going to be wrong in the next level, it could be a big play. That's
yeah,
the concern that you have is like, can you protect that? Can you put him in good positions to make plays and to do what he does for Minnesota? You hope so. I think there's a bigger chance than I was hoping that it's not going to work out for him. That's ultimately the issue.
yeah. I was honestly close to having him at 1, but I dropped him to 2 basically for that reason.
Yeah, like this.
My hope with him is that since he's so smart and I feel like he
Mhm.
reads both the run and pass pretty well, I'm hoping that that can help cushion his lack of
Yes.
footwork and lack of speed because he can't his footwork just isn't good enough for him to change direction quickly.
No.
So him, being in deep coverage down the field against a guy with speed is a big worry. Um, but my hope is that he's smart enough and he has good size and length that he can kind of make up for that. But yeah, I understand that concern. I also think he could take better angles in the run game. I think that also might
Yeah.
just be because of a lack of
Again,
speed, though.
that's what I because
Yeah,
I think he's smart, but can his body do what he wants it to do? Like he
yeah,
feels like one of those guys whose his brain is significantly faster than his body is, and that's great until the body still has to be fast enough, right? And I do think
yeah,
there's genuine concerns about like is it going to be fast enough? I sure hope so. He's a super fun player. Watch a ton of them. Minnesota DBs have a place in my heart with Antoine Winfield Jr. working out so well. I loved him coming out too, but entirely different players. And that's the thing that sucks. So
yeah. I think he really needs to go to a specific scheme that works, because he can really just get left out on an island with
right,
his speed.
exactly.
But I've talked a bit negatively about him. I do want to say that I
Yes.
love all the things he does well, and I
Hmm.
do. If he really is a boomer bust player, I think you hit that right on the
Right.
head
Which
because
that's
he's
what sucks is
either
he feels like a high floor player. You'd think,
yeah
but just the athletic limitations kind of make it we
in
can't say that.
today's NFL for a safety, if you don't have decent footwork and speed, it's hard for me to
Mhm.
give you that high floor,
It's just
But
so
I do
easy to
think
take
his
advantage of
ceiling
guys like that.
is really high. It's just
Right.
if he's playing a team with a really that has fast receivers and he's out there, like it's just gonna end up being a mismatch.
Yeah, you have to protect him in those situations, which, hey, good defensive coordinators will probably find a way to use this guy. It's
Yeah.
just you got to hope that you go to a place that's good. That's kind of what it comes down to him, for him. And granted, like because of the range of the safeties in this classic, where they're probably going to go, it's a good chance he is going to go to a decent team because maybe he's an end of second
Yeah.
round guy, maybe he's an end of first round guy, is what he's projected as consensus right now. I don't think that's going to happen now that he tested the way he did, but hey, whatever works.
Yeah.
So then I think you just have your number one. I have my number two left. So I'm assuming they
Yeah.
might be the same player. But who's your number one safety?
So my number one safety is Javon Bullard
My number two
out
is
of
Javon
Georgia.
Bullard. There we
Okay.
go. Okay, so we can talk about him.
Yeah.
You have number one, obviously, or number two. No, you have number one. So you
Yeah.
start with him. Then I want to hear your thoughts on him.
Well, okay. So he is kind of a little bit opposite of Tyler Nubin in the fact that I think he's very athletic in the open
Yeah,
space. He moves really well. He has good balance. He's smart, and I feel like he's able to recognize the pass and run pretty well. He's got good reaction time, and he really is very good at high pointing the ball. I think I'm forgetting how many, but I think he had a good amount of interceptions in college last year. But I might be thinking of someone else.
I'd have to
My
double check, but I think
Yeah,
he had a
but I
decent amount.
watched. I He's good at high pointing the ball. He can make plays down the field. My concerns with him are that he doesn't really have that recovery speed, and I worry about him in deep coverage. Even though he is athletic, he can. I notice he can change directions fast and he reacts very quick. But just in terms of long speed, it's not great. But again, at the safety position, I don't think that's
There's not a
necessarily
ton of guys that are like
concern.
that, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, But and then also in run support, I think he could get a little bit better. He needs to work on his tackling a little bit. But I do think in both man and zone coverage, he's going to be very solid at the NFL level. And for me, the reason I put him above Nubin is just because I don't have to worry about like flat-footedness and him getting burned deep or anything like that. But
Yeah.
him and Nubin were very close for me. But I think just with his athleticism, even though he could be a better tackler, and he does like to ankle bite a bit. He doesn't miss those angles like Nubin does, just I think because of his athleticism,
Right.
and his athleticism at safety also makes me worry a bit less about him against like those faster receivers down the field.
Yeah. I think the key thing with him ultimately is the versatility too. Like I think you could line him up as a true deep safety. I think he could be a box safety, and he has a ton of experience in the slot as well from 2022. Like played a ton of
Yeah,
snaps there as kind of their primary slot corner, and did a really good job in that role too. Ultimately, for me, the only reason that Hicks is higher than him is because I believe in the tackling ability a little bit more. I believe in the physicality a little bit more, and I think he can get there in coverage enough where the difference isn't so stark. Because right now, admittedly, it is. Bullard is probably the best pure cover player at safety in this class,
mm,
just in terms of his instincts and his ability to kind of like feel out plays. You did talk about, and it's something I think he needs to get better at, is like he has all the athleticism to turn and run with guys, but he kind of, I don't know if you noticed this, he kind of like spins around instead of like flips his hips. Like he kind of takes a weird, like elongated route to
yeah.
going back. Like I don't know if it's like a coaching thing or if it's just like it's what he's comfortable doing. If he can fix that, that would actually kind of immediately bump up his like deep ability a little bit, like to run
I
with
didn't even
guys.
really know how to explain that. Like
Right,
I
you
was
know what I'm
kind of just
saying? Yeah.
confused.
Isn't it weird? Like to watch, like what is he doing? Like it was really
Yeah,
weird, but like I'm assuming that's like it's got to be like a coaching thing or whatever. Maybe like NFL teams are like, hey, don't fucking do that. Like I don't know what else to say. Like don't do that. Like just flip your hips. But like he just has a ton of upside. Like I think if you told me like you have him at one, I would have no problem with someone fighting me about Hicks versus him because it's really kind of splitting hairs. It's really more about like probably your preference too. Like I just like safeties who I'm like, man, I think this guy can be an enforcer. Like that's something that I really like because you're getting less of that at linebacker now because of the athletes you have to employ at that position just to survive. Because teams will destroy you if you don't have guys who can run with guys in the middle. So you kind of need an enforcer kind of sometimes from other places, and safety is kind of the number one place you can still get it, and I think still be effective. So, but again, Bullard, really, really good player. Looking forward to
mhm.
see what he does, in the next. So I think he's going to be a pretty early day two pick. Honestly, is probably what his projection is there. But let's. I do want to make one note for both slot and safety. So we didn't talk about him here because we talked about him already in corner. Cooper DeJean would be my safety one and slot one if you put him
Yeah,
there. Like
yeah.
I'm just gonna
I
like
was going to mention
granted,
that too.
like not everybody might feel that way, but if you said it, he's like, I'm a safety. I'm like, all right, cool, you're number one. No questions asked. It's like, yeah, I'm going to be a full time nickel. All right, cool. Yeah, you're the number one slot. Like that. That's me.
Yeah,
I think most people probably feel that way, and that's kind of the question with him and like why people aren't sure like what he should play is like not because he can't play all three spots, but like is he significantly better at one of them? Maybe we'll find out. I guess at the next level. But just wanted to make sure we threw that out there because some people probably be like, "Where's Cooper DeJean?" It's like he's an outside corner for me, but also probably better than everyone else here at this
Yeah.
stuff too.
I was gonna say he would be my safety and nickel corner one.
Yes, me too. For
So
like no questions about it. So
yeah.
that just tells you the type of player like Cooper is. Like I'm gonna try to, and we'll post it somewhere, whether it's on the ATB website or on Twitter or whatever. I'm gonna put together like my top 100 players in some sort of order. It's not gonna be as detailed as some other guys who put big words up, but DeJean's probably gonna be the first defensive back that's on the list, and it's not because he's my corner one, but because I think he's just the best defensive backfield player overall. So some people might be like, "Oh, he's number one over like Quinyon Mitchell." Like it's not because he's like I don't know if he's a better outside corner, but better defensive back probably. So, but let's get into the slot players here then. So I'm gonna have somebody at 5 that I feel like you won't have on your list, but I think I've mentioned them before at some point. But I'll let you start with number 5 then.
Okay. So last week I talked about Mike Sanderstill and Kamari Lassiter.
Yes, you
in
did.
my outside corner position.
Mhm.
I talked to you about this before the show, but just in case, just for the
Oh, sorry, you have
listeners,
number 6 first. Actually.
yeah. So I am going to talk about those two because they're also in my top 5 nickel corner, which is I think where most people have them at.
Yes, I do.
But because I did talk about them a little bit last week, I do have a 6th. So I'll do a top 6 today. My 6th is Tyke Smith.
Okay, that's right.
And when I was talking earlier about, I think it was Bullard. I said something about having a lot of interceptions last year. I was thinking
that
about
was Tyke Smith.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I went back and looked and it was him. I like a lot of things he does. I think he's going to have a high floor just because of his run support. He has great instincts and he's very competitive, which are two things I like. And he's very disruptive at the point of the catch. I feel like he's always got his hands in there. And yeah, he had 4 interceptions last year, which was a career high for him in college. So he's able to make plays on the ball and create turnovers, which is, I do think is, it kind of depends on, the quarterback, how many interceptions a corner can get. So I don't put too much stock into that, but it at least shows me that he is able to make plays on the ball and create turnovers. And he's a technically sound tackler. I don't really have any worries about him as a tackler. He can change direction pretty quickly. And he looks like he has really good technique. So I think that'll translate well as well too. He's a solid athlete, nothing too special in the athletic department. He
tested better than he showed on tape, but by a little bit.
Yeah.
He was really explosive athlete in testing, but I don't think it always shows up consistently. So
yeah. I think his arm. I honestly don't know how long his arms are, but at least on tape, it looked like they were short enough that he struggled to kind of be physical with bigger receivers.
Just under 32.
Okay.
So not terribly short for safety, but yeah, a little bit shorter.
But I think he can play safety and nickel corner, so I think he's going to enter the NFL as kind of like a rotational depth piece. But he's smart and he has good instincts. He tackles well and he can make plays on the ball. So I think that combination of things gives him a decent floor. I think at the least he'll be a rotational player. Because of his speed, I don't know I'm not sure what he ran.
He ran 4.46, I think, or 4.48.
Okay.
So like I said, tested better than I think he kind of played at a lot of the time. But
that gives me some encouragement.
Part of that might be though just playing close to the line of scrimmage a lot and not showing it a ton. But still, he definitely tested better than I would have thought.
Yeah, but I think he's got some traits that I think will be able to be developed in the NFL. And I think the things he does well will give him a solid 4. So I'm not too worried about him being at least a pretty solid part-time depth piece on a defense.
So I will say I wanted to get your full spiel before he's my number 2 slot.
Okay. I can see that.
I just really think like the athletic testing definitely bumped him up a little bit for me because I wanted to see how good of an athlete he actually could test as, because there was glimpses of that type of speed on tape, but it just didn't show a lot, partly because of his usage. But this dude is just physical. Like this is my type of slot corner. I'll just say that. Like this is like the Mike Hilton-esque, like physical, and like obviously Steelers, kind of upset with him being a Bengal, obviously, but whatever. He's like that type of physical downhill slot player that has enough athleticism, and honestly more than I thought based on his testing, to actually hang with guys, play man coverage, do all that stuff, be a safety if you need him to at times. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being like a free safety type for a team if they really like if they think the testing matches his speed on the practice field. Like I could see them putting him back there sometimes. His versatility is really huge here too. Like safeties who can play slot usually are kind of one of my favorite types of players because of the fact that safety is just really kind of hard to come by a lot of the time, especially really good safety. So if you have a good one who could also come down and play the slot for you a lot, really kind of valuable position. I think obviously Kyle Hamilton is an entirely different type of player than Tyke Smith is, but like that same type of thing where it's like he's a safety, but like he's really a slot defender. Like it's not quite the same thing. So like that's kind of how, in terms of like his usage, I think he's going to be mostly a slot player at the next level with some safety, hybridness there. But he's just everything about his demeanor and the way he plays. Like I think he's a good coverage player overall too. Like he did give up some touchdowns this year as well as interceptions. He's a guy that has ball skills, which is really nice for a slot because when you can get that combination of the physicality and the ball skills, I was a little surprised he actually wasn't a little higher for you just because of that. Honestly, I kind of was wondering like, maybe he'll be higher on Smith too. But again, you even said yourself, like you could see it. It's just there's so many good slot types though where I'm like I get not having them super high. So
yeah. I've seen a comp thrown around for him a couple of times.
okay.
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Interesting.
I don't know
I
if you
I
see
think
that.
I think Chauncey is so like I don't really think Smith is super boom or bust. I think Chauncey kind of is sometimes. Where
Yeah, I
like
can see
I can understand like the playmaking skills certainly because that's kind of what Chauncey's the name of his game is like the playmaking. But I also think he's probably a better pure safety than Smith is probably going to be in my opinion as well. So that's an interesting one though because I think athletically
Yeah.
they're probably pretty similar though.
Yeah, I've seen that thrown around on Twitter a couple times. Yeah, I could see it, but I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah, we'll see. I think like if he plays a lot of safety and not a ton of slot, maybe that could end up
Yeah.
being a decent comp. But we'll see how that plays out. But in that case, who is your number 5 then? Now
So my number 5 is Daquan Hardy out of Penn
we
State.
actually have the same top. Like I was the guy I wasn't sure if you're gonna have at 5 or in your list at all. We have the same number 5 too. That's kind of awesome.
I think we had
Uh,
did we have the same number 5
yes, we
safety too?
safety.
Well, look at
Yeah.
us.
Hey, the bottom of the tiers we're good on. Like we're there. So, it is what it is. But no,
Yeah.
you go ahead then and talk about him.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear your thoughts about him since he's out of Penn State.
Yes,
I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah.
you've covered him a lot,
That's
but
part of why he was watched as much as he was for me. I didn't know if I'd get to him otherwise. So
yeah. I have some concerns with him. I think his footwork could be a little better, and I think because of that he's a little bit slow out of transitions. I'm also not sure what his 40 time was, but it looked on tape for me like he didn't really have the greatest
I think
recovery
it's
speed.
4.38.
Okay, well,
Which again, like that's when I saw that, I'm like, all
yeah,
right, Daquan.
all
I
right,
think it
well,
shows up more if you
that
want to see his speed a little bit more. Look up the punt return touchdowns he had against UMass. That's where
yeah,
he kind of breaks out a little
that
bit
was something
more
I
with
was going
the
to
full
mention
speed.
too.
Yeah.
Great special teamer.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think if he could just to have a little bit better footwork and be a little
Mhm.
quicker out of his transitions, I don't really see too many. I didn't know he ran a 4.3, so that makes me worry a little bit less about his recovery speed.
Right. It does show up on film, though. I will say it's not always there.
Yeah,
So.
I think he could be a little better in run support, but I mean, he has great ball skills. He was excellent on special teams in college, and I don't. He just has something when I watch him that just makes me think he's going to be good in the NFL.
That's kind of
He's
that's kind of what I'm
pretty, yeah, like he's pretty. He played in a lot of spots from what I noticed on film, and he's athletic enough that he was able to do that. Um, He might be a little undersized, but I'm pretty high on him. I think he does a lot of things well. He's got some. I think his footwork will need to be better if he wants to really guard NFL slot receivers
yeah.
as well as he could. But I mean, he's pretty athletic, so I'm not too worried about that. I feel like that's something that can be developed. He's
Yeah.
got pretty good instincts. He has the instincts. I'm not sure how old he is, but he has the
He
instincts of a
is. Let
experienced
me
player.
me double check. I know he's I think a 5th-year player, but I can find out real quick. I want to say he's 23, but he might be slightly older than that.
Yeah, if he's
He
fifth year, he's
is.
probably like 23, 24.
He's just under 23, so he'll be 23 during his
Okay.
rookie year, actually.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, I like him a lot. I'm excited to hear your take on him because I know you've probably covered
yeah.
him.
So here's my thing with Daquan, right? So super fun player. Like there's an element of watching film with guys like this, and especially with like slot corners, where it's like some guys just have it and some guys don't. And when I say it, I mean like the it factor of, all right, I don't care that I'm 5'9", 175 pounds. You're gonna
Yeah.
feel all
Yeah.
5'9", 175 pounds of me when I hit you.
Yeah.
Like that's the mentality he plays with, and I think it helps him a ton because when you're an undersized player, even for a slot, like he is still kind of a little undersized at this point. You have to bring all of the energy you have and all of the ability you have to every tackle, to every hit, to every play. Because if you don't, you're probably going to get out muscled more than you already would, right? Like that's just part of it. He has the instincts and the physicality needed to survive at that size in the slot. And that's kind of the thing I needed to see from him when I was watching him for breakdowns that I did for Penn State. Like he has that part of it down. Now the size is
Yeah.
going to be an issue in certain matchups. Like he's not going to be able to handle like some of the bigger slots. Obviously, you're going to have to find other ways to use him in that situation. I think he's a great blitzer. I think he could definitely do that for you. It's like that slot blitz. I think he's very instinctive there. He had some really nice sacks at Penn State doing that. The speed is certainly there at times. I do think going backwards, he isn't as explosive, and that's kind of the issue. And that's why he, outside of the size, why he probably has to play in the slot because I just don't
Yeah.
love him going backwards that much. Like I think if he turns and runs like early in the rep and he sees a guy going vertical, then he can kind of get on his horse and get going. But the vertical explosiveness and like the ability to go up in the air is really good too. His vertical is I think almost 40. Was it 42
Yeah.
and a half actually at the combine?
Yeah, he's an athlete.
But it's really the quickness is one thing that it's not as good as you would want it to be for a slot corner, especially at his size. And I do think that's where you see him kind of get beat across his face sometimes. It's like he just doesn't have the quick twitch initially. The short area burst when he's running and sees what he's looking at, like can actually see what he's doing, is really good. It's when he has to kind of make that change and like make that shift to running laterally. Not as good as you'd want it to be. That's what kind of kept him from being even higher for me. Because again, I love players like this, but I do acknowledge that like certain slots are going to give him issues for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, 5 I think is pretty good. Like he's consensus wise, like he might not get drafted, which is crazy to me, honestly. I think Dane Brugler did his 7-round mock, and he was the only Penn State player coming out that wasn't drafted in it. And I don't know. Like this feels like a guy who plays like 7 years, is a punt returner, like does all sorts of stuff for you, and is also a good player on defense when you need him to. Like
he kind of feels like I watched Amik Robertson a lot with the
Raiders.
Raiders. He
Still got a job.
Yeah, no, and Amik Robertson is very undersized. He's short,
Like
and
5'8",
he also
I think.
Yeah, I think he's either 5'8" or 5'9", but he's short.
That, yeah.
But he just has that like dog in him. And
he does.
That's on a scouting podcast, maybe that's not the most expert analysis.
Hey,
but it's
everybody
one of those
says
things
it though.
where like if you're small, you kind of have to have that if you want to,
yes,
especially in the NFL, if you want to succeed. So I do think that there is a legitimate like pathway to success for him here.
Yeah.
I know he's pretty low from where I've seen him a lot.
251 on PFF's board.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't either. As someone who's watched a ton of him, like I understand he's really undersized. He's a 5th-year player, all that stuff. Like there's definitely reasons why like he shouldn't go. I wouldn't take him probably till like the 5th or 6th just because there's a potential that he's nothing more than a special teamer. But he is at least a special. Like I think he's going to be a really good special teamer for you if he can't play on defense for some reason. Like that's the main reason why I'm like you can take this guy in the 5th or 6th round.
He will contribute in some way. Like I have no questions about
like
that.
Maybe if you need a punt returner, I think he's a good punt returner. I know like he kind of had the one big game against UMass. Like I get UMass, whatever. But like I think he's a good punt returner. I think he, especially with the new rules, like that could be an element of his game that'd be really good. I think he plays special teams for you in all 4 phases. Like it's just to me, you take a guy like this in the 5th or 6th round because you need to have depth on your team, and I think he gives you that. It's both special teams and slots. So it's weird. I'm hoping he gets drafted. I hope he's like a 5th or 6th round pick, but we will just have to kind of wait and see what he does there. So we'll move number 4 for me. So I have Jerry Jones out of Florida State. I'm not sure if you have him on your list or not. Um,
I have him at 3.
3. Okay, so we're about roughly the same on him.
Yeah.
For me, this was definitely a breakout year for him. For like this, he was kind of not like a late breakout, obviously, but like just he didn't play a ton of slot until this year, like really at all. He kind of moved inside full time, and it clearly helped him a ton. Like I think that especially in man coverage, he was just really good at mirroring guys and like being in their hip pocket and handling that. He's a bigger player than a lot of slots are. Like I think he's close to 6 foot, about 190 pounds. So like a little bit bigger than some of the slots you see typically. I think that helps him. His run defense is kind of iffy, but it's still better than a lot of slots are going to be just because of size. And just ultimately a very sound player. Like this is the type of guy you draft in like the 4th or 5th round, and he might start for you at slot like early. And that's really valuable for teams. Like again, slot is more important than people are ever going to give credit for. Being able to get one in the 4th or 5th round that I think is going to actually be able to start for you early, really good value there.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Jones a lot. Um, he's one of those players where I feel like he's just always in the right spot.
Yes.
He has really good instincts. When I was watching him, he just always ended up being where the play is happening.
Hmm.
Um, he just has that knack. But I worry a little bit about his like transitioning and changing directions, but he has
Right.
really good feet. And I know a lot of times in press coverage, he's able to, he can jam off the line, and then he has the speed to run with receivers. I don't have any worries about that. My only worry really is about him like changing directions in that sense.
Yeah.
But he does a good job of disrupting off the line of scrimmage, and then he can run with you. So I think he's still a decent man corner. I like him a lot there. He's good in zone just because I think he has really good instincts.
Yeah.
That's kind of where he's always in the right spot. Um, he makes a lot of plays on the ball, and he plays very strong. Um, his acceleration isn't that great, and I've already mentioned his hips being a little tight, and he can't really change that. At
Yeah.
least
No,
really
I don't think
right.
he did agilities during the process.
Interesting.
So there's a reason probably for that. His explosive, he ran really well. He's had explosive jumps. He did
Yeah,
all that stuff. But
he's got really quick feet too. Like
yeah,
I did even when he's playing against smaller, shiftier slot receivers, I didn't even really have any concerns with his speed. Like he's able to keep up with guys. It's just like if he's keeping up with them and then boom, they cut back, that could be a little concern. But he still plays pretty physical and he's able
mhm,
to kind of just break up whatever the receiver's trying to do. So I'm not too worried about that. But
gotcha.
yeah, he's behind a couple of guys that I've talked about before. But yeah, he's a 3 for me. I do really like his upside though.
Yeah, again, the athleticism for the slot. Like I think he didn't use his lung speed well enough on the outside, and I think that's kind of what moved him inside, and it really helped him a ton in man coverage to kind of be in that slot position instead. So I am hopeful that his best football is still kind of ahead of him at the next level in that spot. So who was your number 4 then? Because that was your number 3.
Yeah, my number 4 was Chris Abrams Drain.
Okay. Okay. I didn't have him on my list, so I definitely want to hear your thoughts on him. He was a tough one for me.
Yeah, there's legitimate concerns. He's a little undersized, and because of that, he doesn't play super strong. And I also worry about his open field tackling. But I he I don't know how to explain it because he doesn't have good tackling technique, but he looks like he does want to tackle. He
There's a
just
willingness there. I agree. The
yeah,
willingness is there. It's just the
he
execution
comes
is not
downhill super fast. Like he's
yeah,
able to recognize it and he'll fly downhill. But like it feels like he's so excited to make a tackle that his technique just like he's either flying straight at someone's ankles or he's just shoulder checking them and not really wrapping up.
right.
Um, so that is a concern for me. I think he's a little bit like stiff in his back pedal too, but at the slot position that might not hurt him as much as if he was playing outside.
Right.
Um, he had 7 interceptions in college, so he's able to make plays on the ball. Um, and he's has really good instincts in zone coverage, but again, like I am worried about his open field tackling. So while he can get there and like make plays on the ball, if he's just a little bit late and then it's just him and a receiver in open space, I am worried about him making that tackle. But I think he's got traits that can be developed pretty well. He plays physical, and I think he's pretty solid in press defense as a slot corner. So I think that will get him on the field in the NFL. But until he really proves that he can tackle in the open field and develops that technique, then I think he's going to be like a depth player at best. I almost wonder if it's just a coaching thing because, like, coming out as an NFL prospect, I would just kind of expect a little bit like better technique. Like I feel like I always see him just fly to the ball and fail to wrap up or ankle bite, and they Missouri didn't really seem to like try to change that. So I'm not really sure about that, but I think he does. Um, he's smart. He has good instincts. He plays tough, and he's able to locate the ball pretty well. So I think those things will get him on the field, but he's going to have to be a better tackler and just better against the run, I think, in general.
Yeah, the thing that's tough with me is I think he's a fast player, but he's not a overall hyper athletic player. He's not the
Yeah.
smoothest mover in space. And if you're gonna be like, because he played obviously outside at Missouri, I don't think he's gonna be able to survive out there at all at the next level.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
a little over 5'11", so the height's fine, but 178 I think is what he weighed in at. Just it's light. It's just
He undersized, yeah. I don't really know how to explain it. It just looks like he plays tough to me though. So I'm
he does
not
play tough. It's just the
like
size profile.
he is
I'm
very
talking especially about like people projecting him to be an outside corner. I just don't. I don't think
Oh
that.
yeah, no,
No.
I don't think he can
I
play outside.
yeah,
I don't
the
think
size
his back
profile.
he's just way too stiff in his back pedal. I
And
think
it
that's
showed
gonna
like
hurt him on the outside.
his like explosive metrics like outside of the 40, 33.5 vertical, 9.7 broad jump, not great. Shuttle was 4.41,
Yeah.
not awesome. Three cone was 7.15, also not great for a corner. Like he just to me, he's honestly the we're gonna talk about him, I think, in a second. He's the anti Kamari Lassiter. Like he's like literally
I can see
everything
that. I can see
Like
that.
literally everything Lassiter is good at as a player. It's like just Drain is the opposite. Like he's not like Lassiter's not fast, but he's a little bigger than him. He's much tougher even than I think he is. He also is way more laterally explosive. So like it's just very interesting how different those two. But like I get it. Like I think you bank on somebody who has his mentality at slot corner. It's kind of the same thing I did with Hardy, but I just think Hardy's a better overall athlete, right? Like I think he has more to provide in that way. So I hope it works out because he's a fun player. It's tough when you're like, especially because I would almost
Yeah.
want him to be a little shorter because then he'd be a little stockier built. But 5'11", 178 is just light. Like,
Slender. He's
yeah,
slender.
it's just he's
Yeah.
not super well built. So, but I get it though. You hope a guy like this can work out. For me, so you gave your 5 and 4. I have my 5 and 4. Your 3 was then Jerry and Jones.
Yeah.
My 3 is Kamari Lassiter. So he's my third slot. And I kind of struggled with him and Tyke Smith because, like, Tyke Smith actually played slot for Georgia, whereas Lassiter did not. But I think Lassiter is going to be a slot player. I think that's where he's going to fit best with his athletic profile. And his instincts and his smarts at slot corner, I think, is also super valuable. Like, as good as he played on the outside for Georgia, but with the athletic profile in mind, he's so much better laterally and in short areas. It just makes so much sense for him to be that like instinctive, like playmaking slot guy. And I hope he can survive on the outside if he gets drafted somewhere and gets played outside. I really do because like obviously it's more valuable for teams overall and it's better for him, like career wise to be an outside corner, obviously. But something tells me teams are gonna look at him in like the second round and be like, hey, listen, we know you played outside. You're gonna come be a slot for us. You're gonna dump. Like that's what they're like that you're gonna get. Wouldn't be surprised if on the phone call, like if that ever because everybody's phone call eventually leaks out from the draft. Like, he ready to come play inside for us. Like I wouldn't be shocked if that's like what they said.
Yeah.
And again, I get it. Like
I think he fits better there.
I do too. Like the only reason Smith is higher, like I said, is I think the athletic upside is a little bit higher, and I think he's more physical, like in terms of a tackler. But Lassiter's he's kind of tailor made for it. Like that's the main thing is like it's just very clear when you watch him, like all the things that his strengths are. If you list them out, you're like slot, like slot play.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that he should take it in stride if that's what happens to him because I think he's going to be great in that role. But it is interesting that that's kind of where we're at with him right now. I think.
Yeah, and I honestly think he could succeed outside. I think I had him at like 8, I think, on my corner
Yeah,
list.
there's
So
scenarios where I could see him being able to survive out there. It's harder for me, I think, than
yeah,
slot.
I think he's just a really well-rounded player. He does a lot of things really well. Um, he's very, very quick in like short distances. So
Very, very quick.
I love I that's one of the reasons I love him at slot because there are so many good slot receivers in the NFL that just run really good routes. Like
Mhm.
you think Hunter Renfro's, my mind's blanking now, but I promise you there are a lot of good
Hey,
NFL
well,
slot receivers that
if
are
you're gonna
good
name
route
one, I like guess at least name the one that you're most familiar with. So
Yeah, but that's why I think he's gonna be so good there, and if I'm taking him, I'm definitely putting him in the slot, just because he's so quick in and out of those breaks, and he can understand, like, he just has, like, really good instincts. He
yes.
can recognize I feel like sometimes he recognizes the route the receiver is running before the receiver even
Yeah,
breaks into it
he
or
can mirror
anything.
receivers because of his smarts. Like that's why he survived on the outside of Georgia. And I think it's like
Mhm.
it's not that he can't do it at all at the next level, like we're talking about. And like I don't want people to think that we don't like him as a player. It's just it's so much easier to translate his skill set at slot. It just is. Like maybe he just
Yeah,
can't do it for some reason, right? And maybe he ends up being like this, mid tier, like third or fourth outside corner for a team for I don't know. But everything lines up to make me think that he'd be a great slot corner, like, almost immediately. Like, it might take him a little
yeah.
bit of time just because he didn't play it a lot, but, like, I have a hard time thinking. And is he 2 for you?
Yeah, he
Okay, I just wanna
is.
make sure we're clear. Okay, cool.
Yeah, he's yeah. I just think he's gonna be really good. He's smart in zone coverage. He understands like where he's supposed to be. I feel like he doesn't get burned too much, but there are times where he can get caught with his eyes in the backfield. He
Yes,
really
yeah.
looks for the big play, and
He
he
does, he
makes
does.
plays on the ball. But there are some times he can get caught with his eyes in the backfield. But for a college player who's a really good cornerback, I feel like that's kind of just gonna happen because they know that they can make that play. Um, he's got deep speed. I don't worry about him at all against faster corners down the field. Um, and he's a good run defender. He can recognize running schemes pretty well and he'll come up to support. I feel like he doesn't look like he plays that strong, but he still plays physical, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah, he handles himself well despite not being the biggest player in the world.
yeah, he's not afraid to make a big hit. I saw a lot of big hits from him in college, but yeah, he's my two. I think he is like the prototype slot cornerback. Um, and I think at the very least, the fact that he can play outside and inside, even if he isn't like, say a
Right.
team drafts him as an outside corner, if they're one of their slot corners goes down with an injury, they're gonna immediately be looking at him and say, "Hey, like you're gonna come in and
Yeah,
fill
I
this
think if
spot."
you're an off coverage scheme typically, or like if you play a lot of like cover three, like I could see him being good. I really can.
Yeah,
As an
yeah,
outside, like I'd see him being a quality outside corner. I just think that obviously that's not the most common scheme anymore. And also
yeah,
more importantly, like I'd much rather have an elite slot if he can be that than an average outside corner. Like I know that outside corner is more important, but come on, like slot defenders just like we've talked about a lot.
yeah,
Like as much as they're not getting the love they should be getting, it's so important to have a quality slot player in your defense because teams will abuse you if you do not. Like they will be like,
yeah,
all right, fine, you don't have a slot player. All right, whoever this week, it doesn't matter. DeAndre Hopkins, slot player this week. We like who can, like they just will put their best guy there and be like, deal with it, do something about it. Like
yeah,
it's just if you have the ability to do that. Now, granted, some outside corners can also move inside. Like you have like the Jalen Ramses of the world. It's like race that guy. I don't care if he's in the backfield. I don't care if he's a tight end. I don't care if he's a slot receiver.
yeah,
Get rid of him. Like some guys are like that, but it's just not super often that you find that. So, really fun player. So I'm assuming then we have the same number one, outside of like the obligatory Cooper DeJean number one everything except for Michael
yeah,
Porter's still out of Michigan.
yeah. That's my number one.
Man, to me, and again, I've mentioned this guy a couple times. And it is a Steelers bias thing. This to me is Mike Hilton on like with like a jetpack attached to him, like because he is more athletic than he was coming out, especially.
Mhm.
But so instinctive playmaking skills, ability to play the run in his size, like everything about him just screams like this guy's a Pro Bowl slot player for 10 years. Like that's just what it feels like. And granted, we don't know. That's kind of the beauty of this thing. He might end up being awful, but nothing about his profile tells me that he's not going to be an immediate impact as a slot day one and probably one of the better ones within the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I agree. He is kind of similar to where I thought, Lassiter was just like a prototype slot receiver. I don't see how Sandra still can not be at least a decent slot receiver in the NFL, just with his skill set. I mean, he's got a great back pedal. He has good footwork, great out of transitions, good closing speed. He has good instincts, and he's good in the run too. I feel like he
Yeah,
plays
his
pretty
his
physical.
ability to take on blocks for his side and
Yeah,
beat them is like sometimes I'm like, all right, the guy who's trying to block him, I'm like, all right, you might need to go sit down for a little bit. But then I'm like, no, this guy's really good. But I'm like, still, I'm like, you might need to go sit on the bench for a minute because that's embarrassing. Like
yeah,
he's
he's
5'9", 180 pounds. Like, all right, come on. Like,
yeah, he's pretty small, but he really just plays physical, and it's kind of I was talking about Amik Robertson earlier. I think Sanders still is going to be better than Amik Robertson, but it's kind
right,
of that
right,
same like a smaller player who you wouldn't think plays that physical, but he plays above his size, and he's not. He doesn't
right,
have any type of. It doesn't look like his size limits him as much as it might for other players. But yeah, I
right.
think he's going to be really, really good. Especially, I also had him in my top 10 on outside cornerbacks. I think he was like 9 or 10, but the slot. I think he could succeed out there, but he's definitely
For
meant, I feel
almost
like,
like
for a slot
different for
corner.
different reasons than Lassiter, where like I still think he'd be like an off coverage guy because he could play make then and kind of come downhill. It's possible. Like I could see him playing out
Yeah,
there occasionally. To me, like we're talking about like you were talking about Meek Robinson, like obviously not trying to comp him to him, like you said.
yeah,
But K1 Williams is who I kind of think
yeah. I can see
like I
that.
see, like who's been an unbelievable slot player when healthy for the last decade. Like this is the type of player like if you can get K1 Williams in like the second round, like in hindsight, people are like, yeah, we can do that.
Oh,
Like that works for me. And that's the thing is he's gonna probably like barring something unexpected, he's gonna be a second round player, maybe an early second round player, maybe as early as maybe the Chargers 37. We know it's gonna be Michigan player at 37 probably, but one of
oh
them
yeah.
will be so it's gonna be one of
Jim
them
Harbaugh's
guys.
going to see him on the board and just start
Be like,
salivating.
he's gonna be like, yeah, listen, guys, like I know it's kind of like, wow, can't believe the draft Michigan player, but this guy's really fucking good. Like, so I'd be surprised if he makes it past them, but just a really, really solid all around slot player. Like, just really hard
Yeah,
to find holes in his game. Other than obviously the size, but like he doesn't really play that size half the time anyway. So who cares, right? Like if you play 5'9", 180, we can have issues. If you don't, who cares? Kind of that's where I'm at.
yeah. I will say I do have one concern with him, and it's just open field tackling.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
think
Length is an issue a
because
little bit with that too. I think it hurts him.
yeah, he kind of dives at players a little bit, but I think that can be coached up. And again, he also plays very physical, so I'm not too worried. Like I know that he's not afraid to hit somebody, so that's why I'm not really too worried about that.
Right, like the fearlessness of as a slot, like that's really half the battle to me. Is like
Yeah,
as a slot player, a lot of the time, if you're a traditional slot, you're going to be one of the smallest guys out there. So
yeah,
can you play like you were the biggest guy out there? Like, do you have the mentality? It's tough, but guys who do it, they play a long time and they're really good players. And I think he
yeah,
definitely falls in that category. So
yeah.
yeah, that's our safety and slot rankings, guys. Real quick before we get out of here, I do want to do. Hopefully, we'll have some more shows coming out before the draft. I have to kind of line that up. I know Dalton, if he's listening or watching anything, I know he mentioned that he's going to have some free time this week. So hopefully, me and him can maybe do some stuff. Jake, if you're available, we'll talk about it. But and then as far as the live show, I've talked about it a couple times. It's a little bit up in the air right now, just because of some stuff going on, but if we can do it, I'll try to make sure everybody knows by Wednesday so you can check it out if you want to. At least we'll be going live for the first round if possible, and then we'll kind of take things from there. But I do want to do a first round mock with you, Jake, because we haven't done
Yeah.
one together. Normally, I'd like to do 2 rounds at this point because it's more fun. We don't probably have time to do all that. So let me pull everything up here so we can do one with PFF's mock draft here. And this will be what we would do. I do want to do a final like predictive one with hopefully at least 2 guys joining me, but we'll see if we can get that done. In the meantime, though, so we're just going to jump into a first round mock. So let's do Here we go. Okay. So obviously, Bears on the clock. Jake, I will have you pick odds because that will get you the Raiders pick, assuming you don't want to trade it, which we can do some trades if we need to.
Yeah, let's go with me.
Okay, so you're on the clock.
I wonder who I'm gonna pick.
I have a feeling that Joe. No, okay. Caleb, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Caleb, we don't have to spend too much time on that. For me, this is also not a difficult decision. I know that in real life, nobody fucking knows anything about this. It feels like if who's going to go here. The leading candidate is Jaden Daniels, and if you watched the around the book from last week, I told you to put some money on Drake May at number 2, simply because I think he should go there, and I think there's a chance he does. So if you did that, good for you. I hope you're right, but in this case, you would be. I'm going to go Drake May at number 2 to Washington.
Yeah, I also think I don't understand the like. I feel like I like Jaden Daniels more than Drake May, but I feel like I don't know. We'll see, I guess, but I feel like Washington is going to take May there. But for 3, I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels to the Patriots.
I was going to say, I know you liked Daniels, so I assumed we were going to go him here at 3. Now, the Cardinals. Now, this is the first pressure point for me. Because I think the Patriots are going to stick and pick. I think ultimately they're either going to take the quarterback that they want if he's there, or if they don't, they're going to take Marvin Harrison. That's kind of my thought on that pick at this point. I do think the draft, for all intents and purposes, and start in terms of like movement happening, starts here. Do the Vikings want to move ahead of the teams that are going to compete with the teams trying to come up for that 4th quarterback? If there are teams competing for that, I could see that. What we would do though, I ain't doing that shit. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I ain't like I'm not saying I don't like JJ at all. I really do. I think he's a good player. I think he has some upside. I'm not trading 2 first-round picks and more to come up to get him when I don't have to do that.
Agreed.
In this situation. Yeah.
Agreed.
So yeah, I know it's not realistic, but this is what we would do if I'm the Cardinals. I am throwing this card as fast as I can into whoever I have to throw it into for Marvin Harrison Jr. That's for me.
Yeah. This also could be a spot I feel like.
Yes, I think the Chargers want to get out of this pick. I really do.
Yeah.
Now, whether you do or not, I don't know, but I think they definitely want to. So it's really just about what you'd want to do here. Then.
If we're being okay, so
this is what you would do again.
At this point, I'm not going to trade it. If I do think the Chargers will trade this pick,
I think so too.
Draft day, but personally, I'm going to take Malik Neighbors here.
Yeah,
just because if Quentin Johnson had a good rookie season, I would not be taking.
It'd be a little bit more. I'd be less tempted to. But
the fact that you have Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler's gone, and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are also gone, I feel like you want to grab Neighbors and give Herbert a guy. But I do also see the reason for trading it, and I do think the Chargers will trade it. But if it's me, I would take Neighbors there.
My problem with this ultimately for the Chargers is I know that there's obviously picks later, and I know they hired an offensive coordinator who literally doesn't give a crap about the forward pass. I understand that. But you cannot go into the season with Justin Herbert as your quarterback making a lot of money on an extension and have the receiving core that he currently has.
Yeah.
You can't do it. And if you do that, then you should be looking to trade Justin Herbert as soon as possible to make good on his value, because you're not going to get the value out of him that you should. That's legitimately how bad that it is right now for them.
If Quentin Johnson just had a solid rookie season, then I probably would just trade the pick, because I'd be like, okay, at least we have one, young
guy that
receiver who's shown promise. But he really struggled in his rookie year, and because of that, I'm looking at their roster and I just don't see even one really consistent.
I think Palmer's fine. Threat. Palmer's fine.
He's a good player. I'm not saying he's not, but I don't think he's
not a difference
going to be he's not going to be a consistent receiving.
Right. He's not a number 1. He's not a number 2. Honestly, he's probably a number 3, and that's great if you have a 1 and a 2.
Right now, they don't have a 1 and a 2.
They have a 3 and a 5 based on performance, and then whoever the hell else is on the team, I don't even know. They have a lot of work to do with the offense. But again, I don't know if they're going to do that because they don't seem to care that much. Greg Roman's probably been let me just run the ball 50 times with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and have both of them die in the first 6 weeks and see how that goes. that Chargers are a
Getting
little
all the
bit.
former Ravens running backs.
They're truly like fascinating to me, like what their plan is with this because I don't
Yeah.
know. The Giants on the clock at 6. I am very tempted because I know that our boy Felix is not feeling well. I want to get. I didn't say anything about Daniel Jones yet, by the way, Felix.
I was waiting
I
for
left him alone.
it.
I left him alone for now because I don't. In case you are listening in or if you watch it, I don't want you to feel attacked in this moment. However, I am a little bit tempted to take McCarthy here just to make sure that there's a plan for when Daniel Jones can't be the quarterback anymore, which should be now, but whatever. But I just don't think the value's there for this. Like I
Yeah.
just don't know if I would do it. And like you could take Alt and play him at right tackle, and Evan Neal can do whatever Evan Neal's going to do. I don't know. But I still, even though I do have neighbors ahead of him still a little bit, I really like Adunze. And I think taking him at 6 is
Yeah.
not really crazy at all. And I think that's what I'm probably going to do here, Adunze here.
I would probably
So,
also take a Dunze there.
yeah, it's just you don't have like you have 8 slot receivers and Darius Slayton, like and Jalen Hyatt, I guess, but even he's technically kind of a slot receiver, honestly, is what he did in college. So it's like whatever. But yeah, you're up with the Titans here, which might be the easiest pick to make in mock drafts for the entire season. It feels like this pick has been the same for like 3 months. And I don't know if you're also going to do it, but assuming you do, it's going to be like the chalkiest of chalk picks outside of one. I think it's very funny.
Yeah, we're going Joe Alt.
Yeah,
I don't think you can go. I just don't think the Titans, if he's there at 7, I don't think they can go anywhere else.
I don't think
With
so
how
either.
bad their line was last year. And I was when we first started doing this show, I think I wanted to take like some receivers there, but now that they have Calvin Ridley, that's a lot less.
Yeah, they
of a
spent a
concern
lot
to
of
me,
money on
so.
Calvin Ridley, so they
They also have
use
Hopkins.
them. Yeah.
So I think it
sure.
kind of has to be Alt. When we were doing the around the book, I was looking at the odds and Alt is like minus 200 to go number 7.
That's what I'm saying. It's like this has been so chalk that like if it doesn't happen, I think everybody's just gonna be like, "What? Like
Yeah.
what do you mean Joe Alt isn't a Titan?" They've already been making the jerseys and everything.
Yeah.
Like
No,
you know, like,
he's I would be shocked if he is not the 7th overall pick.
right. That's the thing. Is like it's
Unless
at
he
this
gets
point,
taken maybe to like the Chargers or Giants or
right. If the
something, which
Chargers
I
take him
could
at 5, I'd
possibly
be like,
see.
okay, fine. But
But
that's the thing though, is if the Chargers stay at 5, I think the only way they stay at 5 is if like Marvin Harrison is sitting there at 5 and they have no choice because Harbaugh's like, I got to get this guy. I don't want him to mess with me anymore. Like that's the only way that I could see it happening. Right? Is like so. I even then I think Alt still makes it past 5. So like I don't know. It's interesting, but we'll see how it goes. So I have the Falcons here. Now I could do the funniest thing of all time and take Brock Bowers and just have
that would be the most Falcons move of all
it
time.
would be. That's why I kind of want to do it. And I wouldn't, obviously. That's not what I would do. I'm going to stick to my guns, and I'm going to continue to say that I think the best defensive player in this draft is Drazon Newton. So I'm going to take him at 8. That's what I'm going to do. I think that you can make the argument for Latu in terms of like actual ability to just play right this minute. If the injury concerns weren't there, I would also have him in that same tier. But I legitimately think Newton can walk into the NFL and be a Pro Bowl defensive tackle right away, as a pass rusher especially. So take that for the Falcons. You get some pass rush going, especially in a division with a lot of quarterbacks that are going to struggle with inside pressure. Go for it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Latu, that's who I'm going to take.
There we go.
We're
like
gonna pair him with Sweat on that.
We like that.
Line.
Sweat with the power profile and Latu with the get out of my way. You can't even stay with me profile. You love to see it. Good luck dealing with that, right?
Yeah.
Now here's the Jets pick, and this is one of the toughest ones for me because my heart tells me Brock Bowers. Right, I want to see this offense have the most potential it can, even though I kind of wish Aaron Rodgers didn't exist right now in general. Is where, and I feel like a lot of people are in that same boat. So I don't think I'm really saying anything controversial there, unlike him. But at the same time, like I understand they addressed tackle. They brought in Tyron Smith for a year. They traded for Morgan Moses. I understand all that. Both of those guys have a tendency to sometimes not play football, especially Tyron Smith. So what do you do if one or both of them goes down? I don't know, really. Like Elijah Vera Tucker can play tackle. We know that. Do you want him to play tackle? Preferably not. So, and then if he plays tackle, who the hell plays guard? This is all issues that could spiral in a season where you're kind of banking on Aaron Rodgers' health when he didn't have it last year. So in my head, I'm like, should he take a tackle to be prepared for not only the future but also in case of injury? Like, or should you just kind of go for broke with the weapons? I'm gonna lean towards what I think the Jets mindset is, which is go for broke right now because you kind of have to. And for me, that's getting an offensive weapon, and Bowers is the best one on the board.
Yeah, I would love to see Bowers on the Jets.
Yeah, definitely a
All
very
right.
fun player to pair with Garrett Wilson here. So you're up at 11 with the Vikings. Now you could take your highest ranked quarterback if you want to make sure they come out with a quarterback, if that's JJ McCarthy, whoever. But with the way our board is, it's a little different than what's going to happen. So it's up to you.
Yeah, I am gonna go JJ McCarthy here. I personally usually would not consider drafting him this high.
Right.
But I think, I mean, this is a very, I mean, looking at their depth chart, we got Aaron Jones at running back, Justin
Mm-hmm.
Jefferson, Jordan Addison at receiver, and TJ Hawkinson at tight end.
Yeah.
I don't know how many in recent memory, how many better like supporting casts there have been. And that's part of the reason I'm a little worried about McCarthy is just I haven't seen too much of him and he had a very good supporting cast at Michigan. But I think, you know, I don't think the Vikings want to go into next year with Sam Darnold starting. He's
Yeah.
he's a very solid backup, but I don't, if I'm the Vikings, I would not go into next year with him starting. And I do think, even though I'm not that high on McCarthy as other people are, I still think he can be a very good quarterback. And I think this supporting cast will make it a relatively much easier rookie year for him than if he goes to a different team. So I think given the offensive talent they have, I think McCarthy makes sense at 11.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with him too. Is like I do think he's a good quarterback prospect. I think the problem is, and this is where both like me and a lot of other people just kind of have issues with guys like this, and I'm gonna continue my hatred of a certain player, even though it's really not a hatred of him. It's more about like the way people talk about him. To me, he's a more athletic and younger Brock Purdy type of quarterback, where
Yeah.
he's going to be about as good as your supporting cast is, which for him in Michigan was really good. For
Yeah.
Brock Purdy in San Francisco, it's about as good as it maybe ever has been for anybody. So if you want this type of player, and I think some offensive coordinators seem to want this player, the guy, not the guy who's going to do things for you, but do things because you ask him to do them. Like he's not going to create a ton for you. And I think he can create. He's definitely a good player out of structure a little bit, but he's going to do the right thing a lot of the time. He's going to make the plays that are in front of him. And even though there's not a lot of upside there, I think a lot of offensive coordinators like, yeah, just do the thing I want you to do because they just want to be able to like say, oh, this is what I did, and I get that. But if you're talking about like a top 10 pick almost, it does feel
Yeah.
early for a player like him. But if you would take a guy in the first round at all, a quarterback, you could take him anywhere in the first round. And it's like, okay, whatever. Like that's just kind of how it works, unfortunately, for teams. Speaking of which, the Broncos currently, if the season started tomorrow, would be starting Jarrett Stidham at quarterback. Not awesome, not what you want to do. However, even though I do like Bo Nix a decent amount, I don't want to take him at 12. I would much
Yeah.
rather trade down if I was going to do that. And in this situation, I don't know if a team is going to come up for anybody in particular. Maybe a Quinion Mitchell if you want to jump some of the teams in this range, maybe someone like that. But I don't really think that's going to happen ultimately. So if I'm sticking and picking and I'm just going with the player that I think is going to be the best fit, I mean, first makes some sense. They need some edge rush. Center's a huge need, but obviously not a little early to take like a Barton or anything like that. Receiver is going to become a need probably when Sutton eventually gets shipped out. It feels like that's inevitable.
Yeah.
Still a little early for the receivers. It's probably corner, and I think pairing Mitchell and Passertain together would be pretty electric. So I'm going to go ahead and do that.
I would hate if they took Quinion Mitchell as a Raiders fan.
Right, because they're picking right ahead of you.
Yeah.
Speaking of which.
Yeah. So with the Raiders here, I think at this point I'm either taking The two players I would consider are Fatanu and Dejean. I'm gonna take Dejean
Okay.
just because I think the Raiders have some solid secondary pieces, but they don't have a lot of depth. And I think Cooper, being the Swiss Army knife that he is, would give a lot of value just with some of the depth issues they've had recently. And I would love to see
Yeah.
how Patrick Graham uses Cooper DeJean.
That is also good thing to mention because he definitely could do a lot of stuff with him.
Yeah.
Saints on the clock. Until they stop being bad at it, they're gonna have to keep taking tackles. Um, it's kind of the thing.
They're
Like
stuck in like
Ramchick
an
was,
endless cycle of just
yeah,
trying to find a good
Ramchick was good, is
tackle in the draft.
great, but his knees don't exist. It feels like now. Trevor Penning can't play, just
Yeah.
straight up can't play. I remember, not to get on a tangent here, it's going to be Olu Fashanu, by the way. That's who I'm going to take here because I think he can be the left tackle right away and then can have some, like, if you need him to play right tackle, maybe he can do that. Maybe you just make Penning go over there and just deal with it for however long you need him to. But it's going to be Olu here. The Trevor Penning Senior Bowl discourse is one of the funniest things that's happened in the last like 5 years of the draft, where like oh, he's so physical and he's doing this. It's like he almost hurt like 3 guys by just by throwing them into the knees of quarterbacks. Like, what is?
Yeah.
Is anyone else seeing this stuff? Like, yeah, he put a dominant run block on, but yeah, he threw the dude into the quarterback. Like, he literally somehow failed. Like, he failed his task successfully. Like, that's literally what he did. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Like,
that's the perfect way to describe it, because it'd be like a good block, but he somehow is still getting to the quarterback.
Like, imagine if he played like for the Bengals. Like, Joe Burrow would have never would have played a snap the last 2 years. Like, because he would have hurt him and like somehow in practice doing that. So yeah, they need a tackle. Take an Olu, be happy with it. So
yeah,
Colts up for you.
I'm gonna take Terrion Arnold.
Yeah, yeah. I think if he's there, it's tough. Like, they need corner help. They could use a receiver. Like Brian, I think Brian Thomas Jr.'s ceiling is at 15. Like, I
could
he'd
see
be the
him
guy they
going
would
there.
take.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's their type of player too. Like, I think if the corners that are there they don't love as much as him, I could see him being the pick. But I also think personally the Colts are going to trade down because that's what they do. So
yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that.
We'll
and
see.
having Josh Downs makes me want to take a receiver a little bit less for them.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have like, I think, what's the kid out of Cincinnati? I can't remember his name right now.
I'm forgetting too.
Third receiver. It's gonna bother me. I know who it is. Alec Pierce.
Yeah.
He's a deep threat that just hasn't been productive. So like, they have that role, but not the production from that role. So I think they would like to add to that position, but at the same time, like, they're not going to reach on a player if they have a better grade on a corner. So, Seattle. Now, it's Fatan. I have to take Fatan. Like, if he's at 16 and the Seahawks and I'm doing a mock draft, it's the pick every time because it's perfect.
Yeah.
Like, tackle, guard, flexibility, maybe even center. Honestly, I think he definitely athletically can do it. It's just whether he can actually play it. Low moving costs, as stock exchange guys like to say, with him going, playing for his offensive coordinator again too. Like, it's just too perfect, right? Like, this one feels also like, because he could go earlier than this, which is the wrench and things, but it's like if he's at 16, everything is too perfect for it to like not happen. But it somehow won't. Like, the Seahawks will be like, we're gonna take fucking, I don't know, JC Latham or something stupid. Like, damn it. Like, I don't know. But no, so Jaguars are up here at 17. What are you thinking for them?
The back of my brain is yelling at me to take like Jackson Powers Johnson here or something, but I think I'm gonna take Jared Verse.
Okay. See, this is the interesting thing with the Jaguars is like, you could tell me any player that's in this range they took. I'm like, all right. Like, they need a second corner, but the corner did kind of get wiped out. So not really worth taking at this point. You could argue that they need future help at tackle, possibly. Like, not this minute, but could use it. edge because Trayvon Walker is kind of like a I don't even know what to make of him. Like he was productive technically last year, but like it wasn't real. Like it just didn't
Yeah,
feel real.
he's such a confusing player to
Yeah,
me.
like the
Like,
athlete,
because
obviously. But
you look at his stats, and he went from, I think, like 3 sacks to like 10 sacks or something like that. So it
yeah,
looks like there's a ton of improvement, but when you watch, like, I don't know how to explain it, but it just
he's still just a
yeah,
athlete out there just trying
yeah,
to do stuff. And he's gonna run guys down sometimes. Other guys are gonna pressure the quarterback into him sometimes. But like he's just not a down to down impact as an edge rusher.
yeah.
So getting a guy who can let him be kind of the third edge, hopefully,
Mhm.
eventually, if not right away, might be the best thing for him. And it sucks that he's the first overall pick, but at least you might get something more out of him that way. So we'll see. Have to take a pick for the Bengals. Let me scroll all the way down. To me, I think if Byron Murphy's on the board, even though the tackles are here, like it'd be tough for them not to take him. I think he's like exactly what they're looking for in the interior at this point. But Latham's still here. Fwanga's still here. If I'm like, obviously, this is what I would do. I would take Murphy because they
Yeah,
need that interior disruption, especially now that Reader's gone. Like he was more the run defender, but he's still very disruptive in the middle. Like you need that presence, and they haven't had a player like Murphy in terms of like his skill set since probably Geno Atkins, and even Atkins wasn't the run defender that Murphy is. So it's going to be very interesting for them. Rams on the clock here, so couple needs for sure still. Finally taking a first round pick since the first time in 2016. I think
yeah.
Jared Goff was the last first round pick.
They
That's funny.
they have Jared Goff's entire career has happened since the last time they drafted in the first
Yes.
round.
Right. And
It's
that's hilarious.
insane.
Yeah, very funny.
You can thank
Um,
Jalen Ramsey and Matthew
yeah.
Stafford.
Which hey, it worked out
Um,
sort of, right? So but
hey, they got a Super Bowl, so I as a Raiders fan, I would happily trade 7 first-round picks for a Super
right,
Bowl,
yeah.
given our
Jokes
drafting
on
history.
like other like jokes on Rams. They don't have any first round picks. Like jokes on you, they put Super Bowl, dude. I don't know what you're talking about. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, it's interesting. So, what kind of direction do you think you want to go here with this?
this is a place where I feel like you could do
Yeah.
a lot of things.
So about Dallas
I
Turner on
was going to
couple
take Byron
tackles.
Murphy here,
Yeah, that's
but
also
you
fair.
grabbed him, so I think I'm probably gonna go with Fuanga, I would say.
Fuanga, okay, gotcha. Yeah, they still need like the guard spot and center spot is locked up, which is great. But tackle's still kind of question marks. So I get that. Steelers on the clock. Now, this in real life, if the board fell this way, I can almost say with certainty that Amarius Mims will be selected at 20. He is one of two players, including Nate Wiggins, who I just don't think is going to be as high on the board for them. That meets every requirement that typically a first round pick you'd like to see make for them in terms of like going to their pro day, having a visit with the pro day, the combine, 30 visit. Like he's one of only, I think, two guys officially by the end of it that fit all those categories. So I think if he's still on the board, it's going to be him. The dark horse here would be Graham Barton for me. I could see them liking his versatility and just kind of wanting to go in that direction a little bit. But I would also probably take Mims if I'm the Steelers in this situation. So I'll go with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Barton here.
That's yep. I
Yeah,
figured. Yeah, that's kind of like this is kind of the point for him where it's like,
yeah.
where does he go in this area? Like right around here, probably. Eagles up on the clock, so they still need corner pretty badly. I could just say F it and just take Brian Thomas Jr. and be like, deal with that. Good luck doing anything with that. Uh, but I don't think so. Um, man, you could take a Latham and hope that he can be the right tackle in the future, but I still think he's a guard personally. Actually, I'm gonna do this because it's both the high. You think he's the highest player on the board at this point for me, and also because this is the type of thing they would do because they just do shit like this. Dallas Turner.
Yeah,
It's just they're just like, yeah, more edge rushers, sure, why not? Who needs corners when
yeah.
the quarterback can't throw the ball after 2 seconds? Who gives a shit? Uh, so no, yeah, I think that'd be very funny if they did that. Vikings at 23. So you got your quarterback. What do you do here?
I'm gonna take Nate Wiggins here.
Okay, yeah, I could see that for sure.
Yeah,
Fun player, just a little light and kind of you just don't know what the physicality is going to play quite the same way. That's all,
yeah,
but it's still a good player. Cowboys, man, look at all these needs for a team that has won 12 games in 3 straight years.
I know.
What a weird offseason for them. I
Yeah,
think I think I'm gonna give them Brian Thomas Jr. because like yeah, they could take a tackle, but like who's Dak throwing to outside of CD Lamb right now? Jake Ferguson,
yeah.
Jalen Tolbert, whatever's left of Brandon Cooks.
The
I don't
cor- the
know.
cook, the corpse of Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, like they probably need tackle more. Like Latham, I think is a guard, and the other tackles like yeah, they're not like Guyton would make some sense, but I don't think he's ready to play right away.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, you know what? Give me Brian Thomas. I could take A.D. Mitchell, but Thomas Jr. is probably the better fit. Um, Packers. Now this is where I wish I don't know if Brian has posted yet, but we should probably reference the Packers draft guide. No, just kidding. I mean, it's what we would do, so it doesn't matter. Um, but what would you do here is with the Packers? You think?
I think I'm gonna take Jackson Powers Johnson here. I think
Yeah, I can see that
just the offensive line depth that he would provide because he can play multiple spots. I think
for
would
sure.
be
Yeah,
valuable.
I can see that for sure. Bucks here, also a team with a lot of needs, but also had a really strong season last year. They need corner help with the trade of Carlton Davis. I could see Kool-Aid going here. Running, I mean, they can't run the football, but I don't think you're obviously not taking running back here, so it doesn't matter. Um, I think it's early for Frazier. They could use center though. Edge kind of been wiped out. Like you could take where is he at? Chop Robinson, but I just wouldn't. I know you're a little higher, I think, right, than
Yeah,
on him than me. I just fear that again, like he's just like, oops, can't play, can't do it. Sorry, real fast, not great. No, that's kind of being facetious, but no, I think I'm gonna go Kool Aid here. They just need it. It helps them immediately. I think he's a really sound player. Like the injuries are a little bit of a concern for me because there's concerns with him there, but ultimately, I'll take a chance on him. So
all
Cardinals up
right.
at 27.
Speaking of Chop Robinson, I
Ah, there
I
you
think
go.
he would be really fun on the Cardinals. I also kind of want to take um Adonai Mitchell here and just pair him with Marvin Harrison.
Dude.
I think that would be really fun. Him, Harrison, and Kyler Murray, I think would be really
Michael Wilson is a
fun.
big slot. That'd be
Yeah.
funny. But
Since Robinson probably doesn't go this high, I don't think,
I
but
actually think
he
he's gonna
could.
go in the first round. I really do. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
personally, because I'm a little risk averse when it comes to guys like that. But I think his
Yeah.
like when you have a first step like him, you go in the first round.
Yeah, and that's why I'm gonna take him in the first
Yeah,
round.
that's again, that's fine. I get it. Bills at 28. So AD Mitchell's staring me in the face. Just staring me in the face. Now, obviously, they just got rid of a receiver that had
Average draft
some
position is 28 too.
exactly. I wonder why that is. No, like I know he has some character stuff apparently coming out. Like apparently, like it's diabetes related, which is very weird. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. Like he gets, I guess, angry when he doesn't have his blood sugar figured out. Which I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how that
Not how I
works.
expected you to follow up a character concern
Did
with
you?
diabetes.
But like that's what people think. They're like, oh, he's an asshole when he doesn't have his blood sugar. I'm like, of course he is. It's how that
Yeah,
kind of
that's not his
works.
fault.
Well, apparently he doesn't do a good job regulating it. I'm like, okay, well, I
Yeah,
don't know. You have a whole team of doctors, figure it out. I don't know. Like if that's really
yeah.
what a lot of the issue is, it's like this shouldn't be a
Pass on a
problem.
guy for diabetes.
Yeah, but like yeah, diabetes, can't do it. Mark Andrews somewhere shedding a tear. No, no, we're gonna take AD Mitchell here though. I figure it out.
Yeah,
Josh Allen throwing AD Mitchell sounds hilarious to me. Like just
yeah, that
throwing
sounds fun.
crazy shit down the field, and you're just like, all right, cool, I'm down here somewhere. Lions at 29. A lot of options still on the board, but where are you thinking here?
Yeah. Um, Honestly, really have no idea what to do with this pick.
They're in kind of a weird
I
spot.
would
be surprised if they
have
move
probably
up.
went cornerback here, but those have kind of been
Yeah, we kind of wiped them
going off
out.
the board here. I'll take that might be a reach. I kind of want to take Zach Frazier, but
Yeah, I mean, he
probably a
does
little bit
have
of a reach there.
I don't know if he has guard flexibility is my main thing with
Yeah,
it. Is like, and then
that's
like if
true.
Ragnell's healthy, like he just doesn't play then. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Could take Latham and play him at guard.
I was thinking of that.
Because
That
like
might be
he feels like a Dan
this could be a
Campbell
spot
player.
where at this spot I might consider trading out of here.
Right. I wonder who would come up. I mean,
Yeah, it's
it's
just
a
a spot that's
it's
not at this point. There isn't anybody that I think a team would be like super aggressive to trade
I
up
could see
for.
Latham just again. We're much at least I am much lower on Latham than consensus. So.
I could see a team trading up maybe for like a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix, but
Right, if they want to
I
get
don't
that
think
fifth
any
year
teams
option.
behind the Lions are really taking a QB, at least at the end of the first round. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take Latham here.
Okay.
I
Play him
think.
at guard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do need guard help. I think he's ultimately going to be a guard in the league long term, so I think that's totally fine. Ravens at 30. Man, I want to like Tyler Guyton more. I just don't really. It's kind
Yeah.
of just the issue. Like I think he's a good athlete. I think he has developmental potential, but like I don't know. I think for me, partly because of the fact that I just like I want to do something a little different at the end of the first round than we normally do, and also because I just think it'd be very fun. Let's just give him more small, fast guys. Lad McConkey, go for it.
Yeah.
Add to the passing game, so that'd be fun. Niners at 31. So I'm sure they wish Latham was here. Like,
Yeah.
um, offensive line is just a neat. Like, if you notice, it's just offensive line. Same thing with the Ravens, which is why I thought about offensive line too.
It's definitely their biggest need, but at this point, I feel like most of the linemen are kind of a reach. But
Yeah,
just I think it's a big enough need. They're going to take one. I'm going to take Guyton here.
this is where I could see because he's the type
Yeah,
of player that they would want to
he
try to
could
develop.
be. Yeah, he's more of a high ceiling player for me, and I think they have a little bit of flexibility in which they don't need him to be good like right away. So
Right.
yeah, we'll go with Guyton there.
And this is where it's tough for me because the Chiefs are on the clock. I don't like Troy Franklin.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. However, I know who the Chiefs are going to take a receiver at 32 that I don't like. Like I know they're going to do that.
They have to
And
take a receiver. So.
right. Well, they have to take a receiver, but they're going to take one I don't like, and it's going to make me mad because just like Rashee Rice, he's going to be good until obviously, hopefully, he doesn't do whatever the hell Rashee Rice was doing recently. But
Yeah,
he's going to somehow be good, and I'm going to be like, what the hell? Like this guy can't play, and they're like, well, now he can because he plays for Patrick Mahomes. Like, okay, cool. So it doesn't even matter what receiver I take here. I think it's probably just going to be like, yeah, he'll be good. If I'm picking between them, though, I don't love Coleman, but again, he's another guy who just like yeah, he's going to catch every ball we throw him because why not?
kind of like Pearsall a little bit.
I do too, but like
A little
he
bit.
just doesn't
It's a reach
feel
for
like a
him though.
first.
No, I don't think he's a first rounder, but
Man, you know what?
this could be a trade spot too.
It
If there
would be,
really
but
is.
screw it, Xavier Leggett. Screw it.
Like
That'd be fun as hell. Because it's like, oh, give me the big fast guy that runs over people. Cool. So this is our first round mock in this case. I think this one's definitely a little bit different than we've been doing,
yeah,
which is nice. I am really curious, like when we do which hopefully I'll be able to get John for it, but the predictive mock, how people like, because honestly, with predictive mocks, I view it as like, all right, what BS do you believe? Because it's all BS right now. Everything feels like BS, but what part is actually real? Is JJ McCarthy actually going to be the fourth pick in the draft? Is he going to be the second pick in the draft, like some people are saying right now? I sure hope not.
if he's the second pick in the draft,
If both
I'll be
Drake May and
shocked.
Jaden Daniels are available at 3, it's going to be so funny because people are going to be like, uh-oh, the Patriots actually have to make a decision now. Versus like, if Drake May is just the only one there, it's like, perfect, we'll just take him.
If they're
Yeah.
both available at 3, though, the Patriots phone line is going to blow up.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, how many picks do you want to give us for no, Vikings might be like, you can have every pick we have for like 2 years. I don't care. Give me Drake May in that offense now. But yeah, the predictive mock is gonna be interesting. But this is what we would do in this situation here, guys. So I'm curious if we have a different opinion for our last, because I do want to do one more, like 2 round one, and kind of get into the weeds a little
Mhm.
bit more. We'll see if we can set that show up. Maybe Dalton hopefully can be on for that one. I'm sure he'd want to do that. But in general, this is kind of what we're going to focus on down the stretch here. I do want to try to do a couple more shows. We'll see what we can get on, see what we can get going. So watch out for that. But for now, we'll see you guys next time.